I love what's happening in recruiting at the University of Miami, and hopefully Mario Cristobal, who was part of an amazing past at the U, can rebuild that into the future.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Happy Truth Teller Tuesday. I'm Alex Donno. I'm a University of Miami alumnus, longtime South Florida sports radio vet, and contributor to allhurricanes.com. Thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. We are free on YouTube. We are free on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. And today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Make every moment more. New customers join today and you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to get started. Since it is a Truth Teller Tuesday, we have the man himself with us. And he's not. Yes, Bruce. And Bruce, I had a pre-show chat with you. You're sounding very positive today.
Well, I'm in a good mood because of the guests we're having. And so let me introduce our first one, if that's okay, right?
Yeah.
So he's been on the show before, and he's incredible. He's got a wealth of knowledge. He's got opinions just like me on a lot of things, and we're going to get to those opinions. So here's former coach Don Soldinger joining us here on the morning on Locked On Canes.
Great to be with you guys, man. This is a great show. I love it. I love working with you. And
we love having you, man. We've had people requested you to come back.
Yeah.
Oh, hey, anytime you call, I'm ready to go.
I love it. And we're hoping to track down in this episode Art Kehoe as well, because obviously, Art Kehoe and Don Soldinger, Sports Hall of Famers, such important parts of the rich history of the
Legends, baby,
legends. And honestly, between the offensive line and the running back room, there's so much that I want to get to. And the first thing, Coach Soldinger, you have strong opinions and positive opinions on one of the signees that Miami is bringing into the class of 2024, Jordan Lyle. He's on his way to Miami. I don't think he's enrolled early, but he's going to be here in the summer. And you've had a chance to get to know Jordan Lyle a little bit, Coach. What do you think?
I got very lucky. I got Walt Frazier and I got put in High School Hall of Fame for coaching in Dade County. Warren Henry puts on the thing and they honor all the Dade and Broward athletes. And I went there the other night. It's about 3 weeks ago it happened. And Jordan Lyle, I didn't know. Mr. Frater, the guy that did it, he says, "Why don't you sit here?" And I didn't know. I met him once, but I really didn't recognize him. And I sat down between him and another guy, and I started talking. And there were a lot of guys there. Robert Bailey was there. A bunch of guys from were there. Dwayne Starks was there, and they awarded him something. And Dwayne's an incredible guy. That's another guy. That's
a great guy.
But I was sitting next to Lyle, and we started coaching. He says, "Aren't you the guy that coached running backs at I said, "Yeah." I said, "Who are you?" He says, "I'm Jordan Lyle." I said, "Oh, you were supposed to go to Ohio State. You're coming to Miami. I'm glad you're coming." And you talk about a good kid. And, we just talked a little bit about what was going on at Miami and everything, and why he wanted to stay. And he just has the right attitude. He says, I want to earn everything I get, and he sounds like an old-time Hurricane. And I was really enthralled by that, because kids now are a little bit different, they're all wrapped up in themselves, but they really did. And the kid sitting next to him, I don't know who he was. I think he might have been a DB or receiver. He was a good looking kid, and they all have the right kind of attitude. So they're doing something right with recruiting. I mean, they're coming in, and the kids they want to get back to the old style of football. If they, it sounded like to me.
Don, I was joking with you, and I wasn't really joking because I really have received dozens of comments ever since Miami's running back coach job came open. I'm getting all these comments. Bring back Coach Soldinger. So it's very appropriate we have you. Do you still have a couple seasons left in you, Coach?
Oh, you know that. I mean, that's why I stay in shape. You know.
Yeah.
I'm in pretty good shape. And the other thing
is
is,
there a job open
Mike,
still? Did we
huh?
fill
What's
that
that,
position?
Bruce?
Alex,
I
did we
didn't
fill the
hear you.
running back coach position or not?
What's that? No, we didn't fill it yet, Bruce. No,
There you go.
yeah.
There you go. Make a phone call.
Well, I think I think my wife would like me to go back, give her a break from me. You know, that's why we've been married so long. You know, I was there 16 years, and when I left for work, she was sleeping. When I got home, she was sleeping for 16 years. So 16 out of 55 were pretty good.
Yeah,
she was always sleeping.
Oh,
But you know, once you make that commitment,
until now, Don.
Excuse me.
How would you compare the recruiting when you guys were there as to what's going on now?
Well, it's recruiting now. You know, it's funny. Recruiting was there were time periods you could recruit. You know, I mean, at the beginning, and signing date was the first week in February, and then you weren't recruiting. You were concentrating on developing your guys in the spring. You didn't have to worry about the transfer portal. You didn't have to worry about anything else. You'd still keep in touch with your high school guys and coaches and the players, and you know, get ready for spring recruiting, but you didn't have to bring people in. Now you're bringing them in 365. You're bringing transfer portal guys in. You're bringing kids in all the time. It's changed, totally changed, and it's really, the job is not. They're getting paid a lot of money, but they're earning it because they're working all the time.
Speaking of recruiting, this is something that I was talking to Alex before the show. What happened after Butch left? Was it the recruiting? I mean, you said you were going to talk about this stuff. You said you were going to talk about what happened to you and Art. So, you know, I mean, what the hell happened?
So, you know, we missed on a couple of guys, I would say. You know, I mean, you know, Bruce, it was really hard. It's like feeding a monster. You know, think about the guys we had. The guys that left at one time. I don't know how many guys we had that were first rounders. I think we had 48 or 49 guys that played pro ball. Now, it's funny that you asked that. I'm looking at a list here. I did this a long time ago because when I thought I was going to apply for another job, these are some of the players. You want to hear some of the players I recruited? Brandon Merriweather, Greg Threet, Kelly Jennings, the number 1 round draft choice. Roger McIntosh out of South Carolina. Bruce Johnson was Kelly Jennings. He played for the Giants. Matt Walters played for the Jets, I believe. Leon Searcy was the number 1 round draft choice out of Orlando. Lamar Thomas, Hurley Brown, Darrell Spencer, Rusty Medeiros, Horace Copeland. These are guys I recruited.
Wow. So let me ask you, Don. So was it because different coaching staffs break up the responsibilities differently, whether it be by position coach? For you, it was like region, right? Because obviously you named a lot of amazing players who weren't running backs. So you were recruiting a certain region.
You did it by region. That's how you did it. You did it by region. I had North Florida, the Space Coast, and the Panhandle.
Wow.
You know, Clinton Portis was involved in that. And Bubba McDowell was involved in that. So, you know, those were all guys that played pro ball, you know, or could have played. Rusty Medeiros got hurt. He was from Missouri. And that was Paul Skeens. The guy I played high school ball with was his head coach. That's how I got Rusty. But, you know, so I got lucky. You know, you get lucky. I mean, all those guys I just mentioned were pro ball players. It's hard to replace that. You know, sometimes your area doesn't have that in it, or you know, it's being recruited by so many people in Alabama, Georgia, things like that. I mean, you were competing against Florida State. Now with UCF and everything, you know, it becomes real competitive, you know. So, you know, but we probably missed on a couple of players, but we were still good all the way up in 2005. The worst, that record was 9-3 when we got fired. We lost a couple of games by one by a field goal, one by a couple of points, you know. I mean, that could have been 11-1 very easily that year. So we were still good, but we missed. It's hard to replace a Sean Taylor. It's hard to replace an Ed Reed. It's hard to replace, you know, Edwin James and the guys that we had. I mean, the backs I had a run of backs that I was able to replace some of those guys. That's how good the recruiting was. But it got difficult. You know, the last few years we didn't bring in backs that were the quality that I had before. That's what I would say.
So
we missed a couple of guys.
So as a follow-up, and this is something that the fans have always argued in the last 20-something years. It's just your opinion. What would have happened, in your opinion, had Butch stayed?
At what? Oh, if Butch stayed?
If Butch had stayed.
Butch doesn't get enough credit. That's the way I look.
And I'm not talking about the money. I'm not talking about, he left us in the flat. He said,
No.
I'm not interested in that. I want to know your opinion from a coaching standpoint.
I'll tell you. Butch Davis doesn't get enough credit. I mean, he's a hell of a recruiter. He knew what he wanted, personnel-wise. He's a good CEO. I mean, he gives you your rope to do what you got to do. I mean, he stays on you. If you're not getting the job done, he'll get on you. I mean, he's a Jimmy protege. A Jimmy Johnson protege, and he knew what was going on. Very good recruiter, excellent recruiter, and a good person. And I think we would have won. It's like if Howard stayed, what would have happened?
Yeah.
If Jimmy stayed, what would have happened? We could have been still winning national championship. We might have won. I don't know how many. We played for 5 or 6 national championships. I only won 2. But we were right there at the Ohio State game. The Tennessee game. If we got kicked our butt kicked in Tennessee, and if we won that game, we might have won the national championship if we beat Tennessee in the Sugar Bowl. Notre Dame, when we lost the fumble, Cleveland Gary lost the fumble. I mean, hey, we were right there for about 3 or 4 national championships. We could have easily won 3 or 4 more.
There's so much I want to continue on this conversation on the other side, including I thought the awful injustice of what happened after the 2005 season. I want to talk with Coach Soldinger about some of the best running backs he coached at Miami. There's so many, including like that one backfield in 2001 was like the most talented backfield probably of all time. We have so much to get to, folks. You want to keep it locked right here. Don Soldinger is with us. The truth teller, Bruce Warner, is with us right here on a brand new episode of Locked on Canes. Keep it locked. And guys, I know you're keeping it locked to FanDuel, especially this time of year. Happy Super Bowl to all who celebrate from FanDuel, America's #1 sportsbook. If you're like me, Super Bowl Sunday is all about scoring the best seat on the couch, grabbing your favorite football snacks, and placing some super bets. FanDuel has so many ways to end the season with a W or 2 or 3. Not only can you bet on who will win Super Bowl 58, but FanDuel also has bets for which players will score a touchdown, how many points will be scored, and so much more, including those props that we all love, national anthem props, all sorts of halftime show props, absolutely loaded at FanDuel. And new customers, if you join today, you'll get $200 in bonus bets if your first bet of $5 or more wins. Just visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to sign up. That's FanDuel.com/lockedon. Make every moment more with FanDuel, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked on Canes your first listen today. We are free wherever you get your podcasts. We are free on YouTube. We're part of the awesome Locked on Podcast Network, your team every day. Our first guest of the day, awesome, legendary Sports Hall of Famer, Don Soldinger, who coached running backs at the University of Miami and is an absolute fixture in this community. Coach, everyone talks about the stacked backfields that Miami had. And of course, you got the chance to coach these guys when you had Clinton Portis and Willis McGahee and Najee Davenport and Frank Gore all in the same backfield. Just how did you keep all these guys happy? I know if this was today, like 2 guys would be trying to transfer. That's just how it is today.
Oh, yeah.
But even back then, how did you keep all these guys happy?
Even back then, it's funny you said that. Even back then, Willis was thinking about transferring to Auburn, with Frank coming in. And, and then Frank got hurt. He wound up having that great year. As a matter on the back wall, I have Willis's picture right back there, and I have Edrin's picture and things like that. You know what? There was one ball. And it's funny, Edrin James always said, hey, he was not very happy. He wanted to play all the time. But, afterwards he said, hey, he said, when I got my opportunity, I made it happen. And that's what I told the guys. I said, you all are great football players. I said, when you get your opportunity, don't screw up. Mm-hmm. Don't put the ball on the ground. Make sure your pass protection's right. Make sure all the things are right. And I said, you're all going to have a shot at playing on the next level. I kind of convinced them of that, and 10 of them did play on the next level, and that's the way it was. And a guy like Quatron Hill doesn't get enough. He doesn't get enough props because he was really a tailback that played fullback for McGahee. He blocked for McGahee, and you talk about a tough guy. He was tough as nails. He wasn't very big, but he's really tough, strong, good athlete, and he became a really good fixture in that backfield. So, everybody was there, and they knew that I was shooting it straight to them. I wasn't trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. I said, you get your opportunities to make it count. And when they got it, I said, you're going to get a call. You're going to get called on. So make sure that when you get in there, you get the job done. And they did. They had a great
wound up in the league, too. Let me just – a quick thing, Alex, is just a rebuttal to this guy, the mullet run guy. How did Butch do after he left? Listen, pal, I don't care. And I said this to you again off the air. Who in their right mind would have turned down $18 million for 5 years when Miami was offering a couple of $100,000? You know?
Sign me up for that.
My God, you would have left for $18 million too.
He had
it. I believe they undercut him his value. They should have given him the money. They were very short-sighted about it. So somebody's going to turn down $18 million. Tell your wife and your kids, we're not going to Cleveland because what the hell? We don't need $18 million. Come on. That's a dumb comment.
Yeah, if I told my wife I was turning down like an extra 10 million or 12 million, she would be my ex-wife real quick.
Yeah, definitely. And that's the way it is now. I mean, you got to go for the money. You're going for the money. I think things have changed a little bit. I didn't really ever think about the money too much. I was, it's funny. I was like a fan before I was a coach. I always said that. I was a fan growing up as a kid. So it was an honor for me to coach at the and I wasn't making a lot of money, but I really tried to give it everything I had and made sure my players gave it everything they had, and we had a great run. And to me, that was my kudos for that. I thought that was, as a fan, I was so enthralled by what we did. I just couldn't believe it. Art and I walked the campus for 3 years and never lost a game. Think about that.
Wow.
And I was just hit him. I said, hey, Art, I said, let us lose a game. I said, they'll fire us.
No, we don't want that.
That's the game they fired us.
We don't want that.
And obviously it's when you did get fired after 2005, I remember at the time I was just thinking this is like a desperation move. I thought that you and Art and the others who lost their jobs, I thought you guys were made out to be scapegoats. I'm sure there was a lot more to that situation than met the eye, but I thought, how surprised were you by that, Don? I don't mean to bring up old wounds, but I don't know if you saw that coming.
He'll talk about it. He told me
the wounds have healed. I mean, the wounds have healed. It's I'm still. That's why I never left this community. But I was shocked. I mean, I was shocked coming in after that LSU loss, which was devastating to me. I mean, that's one of the worst losses I had as a Cane, and the fight after the game, we had to break that up, and it was just a debacle, man. And when we came in, Larry says, when he walked in the office, he says, it's really hard for me. We're going in a different direction. I said, what do you mean? He says, well, we got to let you go. He says, you got any questions? I said, yeah. I said, why? He says, I don't want to get into specifics. And that was it. I left. I said, walked out of the office, had my boxes packed, and boom, gone. I was gone the next day. So it was rough, because we had won so many games, and I was around the kids. I loved the kids and loved the special teams we did. We had a great special teams run for the time I was there, while coordinating that. Hey, it's tough, and you love it. And I walked away, and that night Jimmy called me and he says, hey, I'll make a place for you if you want to come to Dallas. But Phyllis, my wife, had a great job, and I didn't want to leave Miami. And, I thought I'd go back. But the second time, the first time I did go back to high school and won 2 state championships. This time I couldn't put my staff back together. That's a big key in this whole operation. And I think that's one of the things that Mario's trying to get. It's very hard to get a cohesive staff. It really is.
So
And,
a lot of us around the program, Don, when that happened, we had this, look, remember back in the day, we used to go down to the school, we go to the Hecht, we'd sit in your office, we'd sit in Artie's office, we'd sit in Jimmy's office, and Dennis, and we'd BS about it. In fact, a few times we were there on signing day. We'd sit there, wait for the faxes to come in. Those days are over. But my point to you is, it seems to me in those at my circles, we're very concerned about the lack of the recruiting effort under Coker. It seemed like it just got lazy. And so talk about that, because I know these fans want to hear the inner workings of what really happened. You asked Coker why, he didn't even give you an answer. But I think a lot of us know the answer. Go ahead, Don.
well, we were still in place. Like I said, sometimes in recruiting, we went nationally on certain guys, but that wasn't our major focus. If a guy was interested nationally, we'd bring, like a Dorsey, for example.
Right.
A Shockey, for example, from Oklahoma, we bring guys in. But when you have an area, there's, you look at guys. I have lists that I didn't do computer stuff. I have lists and books, and I kept lists because I'd go back and I'd have lists from the 9th graders all the way through 12th graders, and I'd follow them for the 4 years. And some of these guys that were given to me as 9th graders was young kids, were supposed to be prospects, never panned out. It's funny. I gave a speech, so in the areas you might not have, you might have to go out nationally to get guys because you don't have. Sometimes I only signed 1 or 2 guys a year, because those are the guys I thought could play at Miami, and some of those guys might have been iffy. They would have had to work at it. Yeah. So sometimes we didn't do a great job outside of our areas. I think, you had to open the areas up. If your area didn't have good enough players, you have to go outside and go outside the state of Florida, which we didn't do a lot. Some guys had some outside, some Texas a little bit. We'd go up into Pennsylvania, Ohio a little bit, but mostly we concentrated what Howard concentrated on the state of Miami from Daytona through Tampa down. But sometimes all those athletes weren't there all the time. And it's so hard. I read a book one time they're talking about, and it was Oklahoma, how good they were. And Barry Switzer said, it's like feeding a monster to keep it rolling. You know what I'm saying? With the recruiting, sometimes you miss on guys. You don't always get. I mean, there's a list I read you. I can tell you the guys I missed on. I got the guys I missed on. I missed on half of them. I mean, they were decent ball players. I mean, Joe Joseph, Timmons. I mean, guys you wouldn't even probably remember, James Sutton, Bell, Chris Bell, Hilton Mobley, Willie Cooper. Some of the guys played. James Scott were decent guys, but didn't go on and play on the next level. But you kind of miss on guys. But those were the best athletes in my area. Those are the guys I got. So recruiting's really difficult. You got to know that if you don't have the guys in your area, you better spread it out. And that's kind of what Mario's done, I think.
Right.
Mario's done a great job with that. Didn't
Larry rely a lot on the scouting services, and there was less personal involvement? Like Butch was a grinder. I always thought that Coker was more of like the fatherly type, but I don't know if he was in the house, in your face like Mario was or Butch was, that kind of stuff. He just didn't seem to be that person.
You're right about that. I mean, he didn't have the personality those guys had. Jimmy's personality is great with kids, and Butch was great with kids and coaches. He told you what he expected. Jimmy told me one time, hey, give me an offensive coordinator, defensive coordinator. The rest of the guys, the other 7 guys, better be great recruiters. And that's true. That's true. And that's the way it was. And Larry, Larry just wasn't, I think Jeff Merck was a recruiting coordinator, and I had to turn down several guys. I had to go look for guys. I turned down Geno Hayes, who was in Madison County. They won the state. He was a great linebacker. He wanted to come here. I set up a visit for him. I come back after the visit. He was supposed to be coming in that weekend. They canceled his visit. He winds up at FSU, played pro ball. He's a hell of a linebacker, and we're not going to bring him in. We don't want him. I said, what do you mean you don't want him? He's the best player in North Florida. Those are the type of things I had to deal with. And it was frustrating for me. I mean, when you have a great ball player, you want to follow through on it, and you don't want to ruin your – I put a lot of stock in the coaches that I dealt with. Yeah. Once they believe in you and that you're taking care of kids, they tend to send players to you. And that's what I did. And I lost a lot of these guys at Madison County. I used to go to clinics and stuff after I got let go from Miami, and they'd walk right by me. They wouldn't even talk to me. Frankie Carroll and Butch Coe are big time coaches in North Florida. It took a long time. Butch Coe finally talked to me. I said, man, I got to apologize about Geno Hayes, because that's hard on me. You have to, you have to be in front of those guys all the time. You know what I'm saying? And it's tough when you turn down a kid like a Geno Hayes, who's the best athlete. He wound up going to Florida State and having a hell of a career, So
sure did.
Those are the things that I had to deal with, So yeah, we missed on guys because of that. I didn't have his ear, on certain players. It was frustrating.
I want to get some final thoughts when we come back from Coach Soldinger, especially on the direction things are going in now and what looks like a pretty nice running back room present day from Miami heading into next year. So, my friends, you want to keep it locked right here. We're not done yet on this new episode of Locked On Canes. Guys, Jace Medical is providing an incredible service. I know we come to sports to escape from the crazy realities of life, but according to the FDA, pharmacies are running out of antibiotics like amoxicillin. That's scary. I can't imagine a more helpless feeling than if my wife or my son got sick while a supply chain issue kept them from life-saving medication that they needed. Thankfully, we'll be okay because of Jace Medical. The Jace case is a pack of 5 different antibiotics that treat a long list of bacterial illnesses, including UTIs, respiratory infections, sinusitis, skin infections, among others, because this stuff can happen to any of us. Visit jacemedical.com. That's JASE medical.com and complete your physician encounter. It's going to be reviewed by a board-certified physician, and your medications will be dispensed by a licensed pharmacy at a fraction of the regular cost. It's never been more important to be prepared than today. Go to jacemedical.com and use offer code LOCKEDON to get $20 off your order. Thank you so much for making this episode of Locked On Canes your first listen and your first watch today. Make sure you're checking out Locked On Sports today after you watch Locked On Canes. Locked On has launched the first 24/7 streaming sports YouTube channel, Locked On Sports Today. The great Don Soldinger is with us. Don, we were
all those comments, man. You're getting so many positive comments, Don. It's unbelievable. It really is.
I'm glad.
If you send me a copy of your resume, I will knock on Cristobal's door and just I'll slide it under the door.
Hey, he knows where I am. It's funny. I don't know if I told you guys. I saw him at the Palmetto Columbus game this year. My son teaches at Palmetto.
Oh, cool.
So I went down to the field. He was with his son, and I was congratulating him. And that was when they were rolling this season that early. And he asked me to come in and talk to the special teams guys a little bit, and so I came in and, Mario and I have a good relationship. I like Mario. I always have. And, he knows where I am. I don't know if I can, it's funny, I look losing. I'm going to tell you what, losing Parris is a big deal. Parris is a classy guy. I don't know, if you've got him on a show.
Yeah.
I mean, he's good. He did a great job coaching. He comes from a great family. I mean, he's just a solid guy. I'm happy for him, but I'm sad that he left because I think he was doing a great job.
Yeah, I agree. And he is, thankfully for us, he's leaving a talented group of running backs behind at Miami. We did lose Don Chaney to Louisville, but 3 of Miami's top 4 rushers from last year are back this coming year. Mark Fletcher, he is recovering from an injury, but he was sensational as a true freshman last year. He's coming back. Henry Parrish is coming back. Ajay Allen is coming back. Got a guy like Chris Johnson from Dillard, who didn't see the field a whole lot last year, could probably see it more this year. How do you feel, Don, about Miami's current running back room? And do you feel like they have a good mix there of guys who have different characteristics?
And we got to assume, hopefully, that TreVonte Citizen will be healthy.
Yes.
That's right.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'm going to tell you what, they have a room. They have a room like I had, and they get, the biggest thing is that you can't, like my guys, were always frustrated. They always wanted to play more. You just tell them, man, when you get your number called, and I think Parris did a good job rotating the guys early. He rotated guys in there, and guys that got the hot hand were the guys that stayed in there. But I would tell them, hey, just keep competing, because competition's the thing that makes you good. Mm-hmm. I think, if you talk to Frank Gore, you talk to any guys, I'm there to compete. I want to compete. And my guys were super competitive. And when you have a room like that, all those guys can play. When they're not doing their best, they feel, if they're not getting their shots, they're not doing their best, then they fall by the wayside. But if they're willing to compete, when you get your number called and you're in a game, whether it's pass protection, whether it's running the ball, they all can run the ball pretty well, but you got to be able to pass protect, and you got to be able to catch the ball a little bit in this new offense. And hey, just turn the trick when you get in, and you're going to have a shot at having a real successful career, and you're going to keep moving up the ladder if you do that.
Yeah, that's the way I just think we're on the right track. A lot of the fans are bitching and moaning about Mario and that not taking the knee and some dumb plays and dumb timeouts and things like that. And I can't disagree with them. I really can't, Don. I think that he's made some mistakes, and I hope that the coaching staff gets it together and they have a better year. They seem to make more adjustments at halftime. There's things that just seem to be missing. Can you comment a minute on that before we're done?
Well, it's funny, there's so many things, it's so involved, even talking with you guys, it's so involved when you're talking putting together a national championship program. It's from the weight room, it's from academics, it's a whole myriad of things. It's doing the right things on the field, and everybody in that time span, in the year or the years that go by, you got to be able to put everything together, and the coaches have to have a good mutual respect, and you have to have a feel that you can talk a little bit. One of the things that I probably get criticized for a lot, if somebody asks me my opinion, I'm going to give it to you. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you exactly the way I feel, because I want to win football games. I'm not going to tell you something that I might not always be right, but you talk about those things. I give you a real quick story that happens right before we got let go. We were asked, each coach is asked to give 20 plays for each game. When you look through the film, give me 20 plays and we'll work it into our game plan. And so the offensive coordinator comes to me, he says, at the beginning of the year, he says, what do you want to do? I said, well, I don't know about the play. I want to run the ball and play action pass. So I gave him the runs I wanted and the play action passes. The next game, he comes in to me and he says, give me the 20 plays. So I give him the run the ball and play action passes. And I did that for about 4 games. He says, you keep giving me the same stuff. I said, you keep asking me the same question. I said, that's what I want to do. If you run the ball and you play action pass, you're going to do well. And that's what we did. We didn't get sacked when we play action pass.
Yeah.
So that's what I want to do. If you establish that, you got a chance. So it was funny, that was it. But, I was able to talk. I said what was on my mind. And I think you got to talk. If things aren't working out the way you want, you don't fire guys. Not guys that you think are good. Mario brought a bunch of guys in. They've all had pretty successful careers. If you're not happy with something, behind closed doors, you talk about it and get it worked out and straightened out. And you're going to make a mistake here and there. One of the things about Mario, he doesn't throw it on anybody else. He takes responsibility for it, I respect him for that. And take a look at Campbell, what Campbell did this weekend in Detroit. And And I went out to eat with my son last night, and he says, "Hey, percentage-wise, he was doing the right thing." That's what Joel said. I said I would have kicked it. Don Shula says never pass up points. Try to kick it. I mean, that's what I would have done. But hey, that's what he did all year, and he went with what his gut, and that's what he did. He had a hell of a year coaching. So you're always going to catch criticism. I don't mind that. That's what the job you're in. You're going to get that, but you try to do the best you can.
I absolutely love this, and I appreciate so much Don Soldinger for taking the time. Sports Hall of Famer, legendary former assistant coach at the University of Miami. Don, thank you so much for joining us here on this Truth Teller Tuesday. I guess it's appropriate because Bruce, Don's a lot like you. It's always honesty. Every word you say, Don, we appreciate that.
That's why I like him so much, because he does. I can't say he's like me. I'm like him.
Okay, fair.
He's the man.
Yeah, I don't know if you can coach running backs.
Yeah,
you guys are great, man. I tell you what, you have a hell of a show, and that's why anytime you call, I'm there for you. You really do a great job.
Well, we certainly will call again. Bruce, thanks to you as well. Thanks to everybody for making Locked On Canes part of your day today. We will talk to everyone next time. Guys, make sure you check out Locked On Sports Today. Make sure you follow our show on Twitter, or the app formerly known as Twitter, at Locked On Canes. And we'll talk to you again next time on another episode. Locked On Canes, part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.